Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we're all looking forward to a very healthy and prosperous new year. Welcome to this year-ending edition of Believe in Lions, brought to you by FanDuel, alongside the voice of the Lions, Dan Miller, and former All-Pro safety Glover Quinn. I am Trevor Thompson. Glad to have you with us as we look ahead to the Vikings. But first, we're going to look back at a 29-24 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers at Ford Field, which pretty much, as my Christmas sweater says, roasted their playoff chances. And Dan, we just want to get you to get us started here today where it all ended. One of the strangest calls we've ever seen, a game-winning touchdown that wasn't, thanks to a pass interference call that maybe didn't need to be called. I'm wondering, from your perspective in your chair as the game is rolling on, what's your feeling on that play call and how it unfolded for you? Get us started.
Yeah, I would go back. Never seen a situation where we had two OPIs wiping out two touchdowns on 4 plays to end a game. But I would go back to the Tesla play. And, that's the one to me that is questionable. That's the one to me that, did not look like necessarily a pick play. I know these officials they have a heightened awareness of looking for these things. But it looked to me like he got pushed into him a little bit. I don't think that he went directly into him looking to separate him from the receiver. That one I had a problem with. TJ and Lomas pointed that out right away on the broadcast. And then, look, the Amon-Ra one, there are a couple things on that play. Number one, when you go into a player and you fully extend your arms, they're going to call that. I mean, and that's a Hall of Fame defensive back in Ramsey who knows how to, accentuate that call. But when they see that, and Glover, you can jump in and tell me if I'm wrong, but man, when they see you fully extend and then separate the other way, that's often going to get called. And I'll tell you further on that play, I don't know how in the world they didn't end the play, because it looked like they had certainly stopped Amon-Ra, and like half the Steeler defense stopped playing at that point. And then he flips it to Jared, and Jared takes it in. So even if they had somehow allowed that, I think Pittsburgh would have been flipping out saying, how in the heck was that play not over when it was clear that his progress had been stopped? So, for me, much more, I'm much more in disagreement about the Tesla call than the Amon-Ra call. And that's to get down and have first and goal at the 1 and not be able to find some way to get it in is a rough way to end a game.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in on 2 things. So when you look at that last play, yes, Amon, that's a push off. We can say what we want to say, but you got to get DBs the benefit to be able to have that moment, because offensive guys can push off. If we can't get that call, then we have no way to survive. But from the Steelers standpoint, I don't think the referees are going to stop that, because when you look at it, at the end of the game, you're kind of like a boxer that's like, you're getting beat, but you're still halfway fighting back. So the referee is going to be less likely to end the fight if you're showing some type of fight. So on that if you're in the first quarter, they may call, forward progress, right? Stop the play. Yeah. The last play of the game, Amon is still fighting. He's trying to get out. I don't think they're going to just stop the game. So the Steelers got to close that out better. But we're not a Steelers podcast. But I was talking to Trevor before, and I was like, I think the Tesla play, in my opinion, I mean, that's just a coaching error. And what I mean is, if they flip it, if they put Tesla in the slot and put Amon on the outside, now Amon is the guy releasing inside. I don't think Amon gets called for the OPI, because the officials are probably going to give Amon a benefit of the doubt. They're going to assume that he executed perfectly, and maybe he does execute it perfectly. When the officials see a wide receiver that wide open, and then they see Tesla, who is a rookie, not well known in that sense, they're going to just assume he ran into him. He picked him. He's not 1 yard from the line of scrimmage. We see him 6 yards down. It had to happen, and they're going to throw the flag. So I think from a coaching standpoint, you just can't put Tesla in that situation. You got to, because you got to imagine, they're not calling Calvin Johnson for OPI right there. Golden Tate's walking in the end zone. They're not going to call
Right.
Calvin Johnson for OPI. But if we'd have had Chris Dorm right there, they're going to call Chris Dorm for OPI. So in that situation, I think Amon walking in the end zone, they're going to call Tesla for OPI. Tesla walking in the end zone, they're not going to call Amon. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Dan Campbell goes back and looks at that whole sequence, there might be a couple things he does differently. When you got first and goal at the one with a timeout, you can get Montgomery in there and see if you can run it in. You got time to try to do that. And then you're back at the 11 after the penalty, and then you get back down there, and it was just not a sequence that I think they executed the way that they wanted to, obviously because they didn't score. But it's I think we're in agreement that either way, that first one was the one that was questionable. But it's, to your point, Glover, it's these officials now, and Pittsburgh got called for a pick play earlier in the game. I mean, they're so in tune to that now. They're watching, and anything it feels like almost that disrupts a player, if it's more than a yard off the line, anything that disrupts a player, if they see a guy running free, I almost think that their first instinct is, he had to have gotten picked there. We're going to throw the flag. Right. So it's even to call that down there can be risky because you know that they are so tuned into what is happening down there with any sort of contact if you have two receivers on the same side crossing.
Right. And I think, and I could be wrong, but didn't Tesla have an opportunity on like first or second down in that series that Jared Goff threw like the high pass?
Through the high one. He threw the high one. He got his hands on it. And I guarantee you, he'd tell you he's got to make that catch. And it's, would it have been a really good catch? Yeah, it would have. But we've seen him make some incredible catches in his career and saw him make one in this game when he got popped in the end zone and still made the grab. And you know what? He's 6'4", whatever he is, and fully extended. But, man, he got his hands on there, timed his jump perfectly. And I guarantee you, knowing how competitive he is, he's laying in bed last couple of nights just thinking about that play, and he feels that ball in his hands and then not coming down with that catch. And he did not talk after the game. And he's always a kid that, is willing to talk and whenever media makes a request. And I know both those plays were sitting hard with him. And that's tough lessons to learn there for a young player. But you get better from that. There's only one way to go after that.
And we can talk about that all day long, Dan, and those opportunities missed. But the passing game wasn't the problem. The running game was. You can't expect to go into a game like that against Pittsburgh with your playoff lives on the line, run the ball for 15 yards and think you're going to get away with it. So we can go to that last play of the game. We can go to those pass interference calls, that drop by Tess. I don't even call it a drop. Tough play to make. But they didn't run the football. They haven't been running the football. Only 40 yards over the last 2 weeks for Jameer Gibbs on the ground. You're not going to get away with that. What are you seeing in the run game? What are both you guys seeing in the run game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was actually thinking about that, later as I was going over some of the stats. It's like, man, because you're that close to winning that game. And it's like, when would a team ever have been outrun by 215 yards or given up 230 yards on the road, or on the run and still wins the game, or a team runs for 230 and loses the game? It would have been highly improbable, but it was right there for the taking. They certainly had a chance to do it. But to your point, look, Mike Tomlin said after the game, and it was a great quote. He said, "We rode our ability to stop the run, to take away their play action." And everybody knows how good Jared is in play action. And even in this game, they're running play action, and Lomas and TJ are in the booth with me, and they're like, "Why are you running play action? They're not going to react. You're not running the ball." So it really was credit Pittsburgh, man. They did the job. They stopped them on the ground. And once they did that, it made everything that the Lions like to do off that run more difficult. And for 3 quarters, we saw how that made it very tough for them to move the ball down the field with any consistency at all.
Yeah, I think, what we've seen the last 2 weeks, in my opinion, is what we would call playoff football in December. Early in September, October, you're running the ball all over the place. That's fine and dandy. When you get into the playoffs, things tighten up and they understand what you are. And they know that the lines are Jameer Gibbs and play action. They know Jared Goff is not a great just drop back, throw the ball 60 times type of guy. They know Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to live in the intermediate, and they know that Jameson Williams is the deep threat guy. So if we can stop the run game, clearly we're going to affect their offense because we're going to slow down the play action, and the other guys are going to be ineffective over the course of a 4-quarter game. And that's what we've seen the last 2 games against playoff teams with a lot to play for in December. We saw it in the Rams. We're going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs. We saw it in Pittsburgh. We're going to stop Jahmyr Gibbs. And the Lions haven't had an answer for that. And that's what you get when you get into playoff football. That is what you get. They're going to take away who you are, and we haven't had a counter for it.
How much?
Yeah, and I think that's a disappointing thing, not just their inability to run the ball. And look, guys, I think a lot of this season, the difficulties – you look back at losing Frank Ragnow, and I think early on we thought, man, okay, they're overcoming that. And I think as time has gone on, we've found out that when you lose one of the best centers in football and don't have somebody sitting right there that is, I don't want to even say close to Frank, but they've struggled at that position with Graham, and they've struggled at that position when Graham hasn't been in there. Losing Frank, I think, is one of the big stories of this season. You can talk about coordinators all you want. To me, it's that big dude in the middle, missing him, that has really hurt this offense. I think it's hurt them against teams like Minnesota in that first game when they didn't do a good job handling the pressure. I think it's hurt them in the run game. And then their inability to stop the run, one of their strengths the last couple of years, they've not been good against the pass. They were ranked 30th, I think, last year, 27th the year before that. But they were top 10 against the run in both those seasons. And this year, when you're having trouble stopping the pass and you're having trouble stopping the run, there's nothing to lean on defensively. So I think, not to go too far down the road, there's 2 games left. Obviously, their playoff path is narrow. But one of the things they're going to really have to do is figure out that defense and what are we? And where's our strength? And how do we get back to that? Because they've lost that this year. And when you can't stop one or the other, it's really tough. And to watch Pittsburgh, I think there were 4 at least 3rd and 10 or more that they converted in this game. Man, that just breaks your heart. And it breaks your will, and it just is difficult. And I just think there were too many times they had chances to get off the field and didn't do it. And Pittsburgh was able, and credit Rodgers, man. He read that defense and knew where he was going to go and never really looked too pressed doing it. And that was problematic on that night. And I think it's been problematic this season because the Rams did some of that same thing the week before.
Yeah. I got one question for both of you guys, too. But if your run game's not working, if you're having troubles getting the offense going, you're getting stalled. I think they only had 3 plays in the third quarter. When you have opportunities to put points on the board, and it may be enough of this going for it on 4th and take some points, get a field goal every now and again, it could have made a difference in that game, especially early on. I'm just wondering what each of you guys think of this going for it on 4th as opposed to maybe taking some points when you're struggling to put points on the board.
Yeah, let me just say this. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and Trevor, it's a good question. And here's my problem. I think maybe let me just take this isolated incident. In a 3-0 game where it's becoming apparent that points are hard to come by, maybe at that point you take the points and tie the game. But I will say this. I don't even know what the answer is anymore, because in my growing up and working in this game for the first, 30 years of it, I thought I knew what going on 4th down was and what going on 4th down wasn't. Now it's become so muddied, and so many teams around the league go for it so often that it seems like the answer now is when you get it, you're right. When you don't get it, you should have kicked the field goal. So, I mean, I don't even know anymore, because it's just become such a common occurrence that teams go for it, that the rules that we used to live by when it comes to that, I don't know, GQ, those rules just don't seem to apply anymore.
Well, I mean, it's so easy for the offense to pick up certain things now, because I do feel like the rules have changed. I mean, they got a better chance of getting the legal contact than, it's something's going to happen on 4th down and they're going to get the first down. So that right there just kind of changes the whole thing of going for it on 4th down. And I feel like the Lions, like you said, Dan, sometimes when you get it, you're right. When you don't get it, you're wrong. But I do feel like you have to just understand the game. You have to understand the feel of the game. You have to understand your team. And I think sometimes Dan puts the team in a situation that they're not built for, meaning defensively, you're not stopping people. Offensively, you're not putting up 40 points. So going forward in those situations and not getting it, it's just a total deflation to the defense. It's a total letdown to it's just a killer. And they haven't really bounced back from those moments this year. This team just have not bounced back from those moments. And then you look up at the end of the game and you always have that, wow, if they would have kicked the field goal, now they would only need a field goal to win it. And you just don't know that in the first quarter. So that may be my thing. Why am I going for it? Like it's the first quarter. I don't know.
I also think much of Dan's thought process was born in the last couple of years. And let me go back to it. When you had Frank Ragnow, and those fourth downs, I think, were easier when you had that dude blocking, protecting, or opening up holes in the run, and you don't have that anymore. And I honestly, I just think they're not. And it's a strange conversation, fellas, because for much of this year, they've been number one in the NFL in scoring. Now I think that they're number two. I think they may have fallen a spot this past week. But I just think some of those fourth downs have not been the same because you don't have that guy in there in both, whether you're running it or passing it. And again, it's not the same team. But I keep going back to this. We've seen them have success. They do lead the league or top two in scoring. But, man, there have been some droughts this year where they just haven't been able to, secure that. And to your point, too, about third quarter and only having 3 plays, that is true. And I had this conversation on the air with the guys during the game. They're like, well, the defense is tired, and that's okay. And I get that. But you know what? If you're the defense, you can get off the field and give the ball back to your offense. So it kind of goes both ways. It's offensive inefficiency that leads to the defense being on the field, but the defense can also get off the field if they can find a way to stop them on some of those third downs. So it's just what it comes down to, fellas. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to play with the best teams in the league right now. I still think this team is stacked. I still think they have a lot of talent. I think they've got to tune some things up. And I don't think this has to be the beginning of some sort of fall or anything like that. But I just think some of the areas that they need to fix, we are seeing as issues right now. And one other thing, and this goes to your world, Glover. When you don't have those 2 playmakers in the back end of your defense, that's changed things as well. I know how Glover changed things when he was in the game. You know what? These guys not being in there is hurting them as well, not being able to make plays defensively on some of these passes or possible interceptions. They're ball hawks and things like that. And that's been a factor as well.
Yeah, and I would say everything goes hand in hand, offense and defense, right? When you look at an offense, it's very difficult to methodically drive the ball 20-play drives all game, all season. You need those big plays. You need those, quick hitters where you can get things like that. And the same way from a defense, it's very difficult to stop people when you're having to go 10, 12, 13 plays to get them stopped. If you can't get sacks and get them pushed behind the downs, you're not getting turnovers. And like you say, they're going first down, second down, third and long, first down, third and long, first down. Like over the course of a season, it just doesn't play out the way we want it to be. So no turnovers. I can't remember the last time we had a significant turnover. Sacks. We're not getting that.
It was a Rams game. It was the Aiden that turned into a touchdown a couple plays later. But they had gone 7 games in a row without points off a turnover, which is for this team, it's been their bread and butter. Yeah, that's how you got some separation. You gave that ball back to the offense, and that offense scored. Man, for 7 games, it didn't happen. And that's taken away one of the ways that you won games, simply put.
And that plays into everything because – we can say what we want to say, but we're all human, right? And when you're doing something with certain people, you start to realize what that person can do, what you trust them to do, what they can't do, and what you trust them not to do. So from an offensive standpoint, when you don't really trust the defense, maybe you make different play calls. From a defensive standpoint, when you don't trust the offense, you make different play calls. You play the best when we're all hand in hand, right? And I think you've gotten to that point to where, sometimes Dan may be in that situation where last year when he was going for it on fourth down, or the year before, it was because we had a high-powered offense and I trust my defense. Now we're going for it on fourth down because I don't trust the defense. Not that we have this high-powered offensive, but I just don't trust the defense. So we got to try to score.
That's a great point.
So it's all types of things that go into it.
That's a great point, because you're thinking if I just score 3, it's not going to be enough. I need 7 to win this game. So yeah, it's a circle, man. It keeps coming back on itself, and it's when you're deficient in areas that makes you maybe take risks in other areas.
It all adds up right now when you look on FanDuel to the Lions being minus 4,000 to make the playoffs right now. That's not a good look. 6% chance if you look other places. So going forward, Dan, they're going to take on the Vikings on Christmas Day on a short week, carrying the weight of a really tough loss at home. What's your sense of how these guys are feeling right now going into this game, and the mood around these guys and what they're really playing for at this point with very slim chances? Got to win out, and then Green Bay's got to give them help, obviously.
Yeah, it's cliche, but it's pride. And I've had a number of guys say to me, we're going to find out what we're made of. And, I think they're really disappointed, but maybe a quick turnaround against a team that handed it to you last time is a good thing. And I love being at games in this stadium. I love being in U.S. Bank. It's a great place, and their fans are great. And they'll be fired up, I think, when they get out there, when they hear those fans and that Skull chant and all that stuff. It's a pretty cool thing. Look, I'm expecting them to go out there and play. I'm expecting them to go out there and play hard. I know that was a difficult loss that took a lot of the air out of the balloon, but I think I've got a pretty good handle on this team. It doesn't mean that some of the issues that we have been looking at won't crop up again, but I anticipate they'll go out there and play hard. All you can do is play the hand you're dealt. You still have a small chance. There's every chance that Green Bay could lose to Baltimore. Probably the tougher proposition is losing to Minnesota in the final week of the season. So play it out. Do what you can. Everybody that I've talked to has kind of said the same thing, that they want to go out there for themselves, for their coach, for their brothers, and play and show people who they are. I don't think anybody's happy with this, and the only way you can kind of remedy that right now is to go out and win a game.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going on with Jordan. I know he left the game last week with a concussion, so I don't know when he's coming back. And the Lions get to play on Christmas Day, so they get the first crack at it. Obviously, if they don't win on Christmas Day, then Green Bay's automatically in the playoffs, right? So by the Lions winning on Christmas Day, that puts the pressure on Green Bay to have to go out and win. And like I said, I don't know what's going on with Jordan Love. And so you just never know. It could come down to that last week, and I'm sure the NFL will flex it to where they're both playing at the same time. But none of that stuff matters if the Lions don't go out and win on the road on Christmas Day, back against the wall. We'll see.
And no Micah Parsons for them as well. That's going to be a big hole on their defense. They obviously brought him in to be a difference maker,
no doubt,
at this time of year specifically. And when it comes to that, you talk about Love and you talk about Parsons, that might affect the line here, Glover, for you when we look at FanDuel right now. 5.5 points the Lions are giving. 44.5 is the over-under. Your favorite part of the show?
Well, I'm gonna say 44.5. We'll get the over. We're going to Minnesota. I think we'll put up 24, 30 points. We scored a lot of points on the road in LA. We lost last week, but they still scored 24 points. So I think they'll put up 24 to 30, and Minnesota put up at least 2 touchdowns. So where we're playing defense, Minnesota put up 3 touchdowns. So yeah, I'm gonna take the over on that.
Go ahead, Dan. You've got a chuckle there. Go ahead. I want to get your thoughts on that too. What you're expecting as far as the outcome on the field to be.
I don't touch spreads. Nobody wants to hear me talk about them.
As far as the spreads, though, just are we going to see a high-scoring game, a lower-scoring game? What's your expectation along those lines?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, Minnesota obviously has got some issues at quarterback, so we'll see what happens there. Man, I'd just like to see the Minnesota's lost some guys on defense as well. So, the Lions in the 4 games that they played against this defense, Brian Flores, before they played earlier this year, they won all 4 of them. They scored over 30 points in each game. Now, that's handling the pressure. And some of that, every one of those games, go back to it, was with Frank Ragnow, kind of diagnosing what was going on when he came to the line. If they can handle that better than they handled it the first game, I think Minnesota does give you opportunities to score, and the Lions have been able to take advantage of that over the years. So let's get back to that. Let's see the Lions open it up a little bit, do a better job against the pressure than they did the first time. And find a way to put some pressure on that Minnesota offense to see what they can do when they will not be at full strength. It does not appear. So, I'd love to see the Lions get out there and give their offense, the ability to score and get back to doing some of the things that we've seen them doing well this year.
They're going to kick it off at 4:25 on Christmas Day. So in keeping with the Christmas theme, let's put a bow on this show by having each of you guys give me one thing you're thinking about or looking for in the penultimate game of the Lions season here on Christmas Day against the Vikings on the road. Dan, you go first.
For me, it's just, man, show them who you are. This team is still a good team. We can still look up and down this roster and see guys that are at or near the top of their position group in this league. So go out and show that. Let's get back to doing some of the things that they did before. Like GQ said, let's take the ball away. Let's give it back to the offense. Let's score some points off that. Finish this season strong. The offseason is going to be the offseason. There's things to worry about then, but they will be then. So you got 2 games left to kind of show people once again that the Lions are not finished or done or anything like that. And I hope that means something to them and they'll go out there. And I believe it does. And they'll go out there and give you the best they got.
Yeah, I've been saying all year, I think this was a mature football team. And they've showed up in moments and been mature. And so this right here is another one of those games that they're going to have to, in a week when there's a lot going on. They're hearing a lot from the outside, the playoffs, the this, the that. It's the holidays, the family pressure, the this, the that, and what are the plans because you got to go out of town because you plan on Christmas. Are we celebrating before? Are we doing it when we get back? Like all these things are going on, and you have to find a way to block all that out, lock in, prepare for a Minnesota team that beat you at home. That's in your division, so those records are thrown away when you're playing divisional games. And this is an absolute must-win game for you. You have to control your own destiny by winning, and that's all that you can do. And so we'll see if Dan Campbell can get those guys ready and they show up ready to play. And if they do, that's all you can do and give yourself a fighting chance. So hopefully on Christmas Day at that point, I can have me a glass of whiskey and and enjoy a win.
Sponsored by your favorite brand. I'm going to be looking for that as well, too, for the Lions to get it together on both sides of the ball, to push this thing to the final week of the season. And, we want it all to play out like that. Everything on the line, the final week of the season, to keep everybody interested until then, despite the odds. We'll all remember what the Tigers' odds were. 2%, wasn't it, Dan, in August? And they got it done, got themselves into the playoffs a couple of seasons ago. So we'll hope that the Lions can buck the odds and do the same here. Dan, we really do appreciate your time here. Enjoy Minnesota on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Glover, the same to yours and everybody out there watching and listening. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all of you. We'll look forward to getting together on the other side of this Viking game, talking about a Lions win and a continued push to the playoffs. In the meantime, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to share, and be sure to enjoy and have safe and happy holidays, one and all. Thanks for tuning into this edition of Believe in Lions, brought to you by FanDuel. We'll catch you on the other side. Happy holidays, everybody.